All right, Larry Mazza is back on Serious and Silliness Outcast, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe because I'm bringing you great content like Larry. What's up, Larry?
Hey, thank you for that. Yeah, no, I'll always be there for you. I enjoy you.
Thank you,
Good.
man. I appreciate it. So, what do you were doing a commercial? You said.
Yeah, well, actually, it's for something that I'm going to be putting out soon. Let me tell you how it came about.
Okay.
Most people that have followed me or whatever know that I was involved in the gambling business for many, many years, and I became a bit of an expert in it. I mean, I don't know how else to say it without sounding,
Oh,
uh,
is
you
what it
know,
is. You do something
it's a
for 20 years, you're gonna know about it.
more than that, almost 50.
Wow.
I'm going to
Yeah.
be 64. I'm doing it since I'm 15.
Wow.
So I mean
Okay.
that's a lot of years. But
Yeah.
the thing is, I with the legalization now, all the states, most countries, it opened the door to let guys like me out of the shadows.
Right.
I can now be a consultant for offshore sports books. I can be a consultant for FanDuel. I can be a consultant for gamblers, and that's where we're headed. My producer, Joe Paletto, I've mentioned him several times with you,
Yeah.
has been following my football handicapping, among other things, but mostly football because he enjoys that. And last year, put him over the top. I had such an incredible season that, and I tweaked something. Usually, I'm ahead of the odds maker in September into October
Mhm.
because he's got a whole bunch of things to do. I don't say he, I mean that the odds makers in general. They've got college football, hockey, basketball, soccer, baseball still going on until October. So they've got their hands full trying to put a good solid point spread out. I can zero in with my handicapping and the things that I've learned over the years on some soft lines.
Mhm.
Also, I made a lot of contacts over the years with the sharpshooters, the sharpest bettors in the world. The wise guy, they had the kosher boys out of Philly. There was a guy called the Professor years ago in the Northeast. I want to say New England area, maybe even Philly also. Uh, the Computer Whiz kids,
Wow.
Billy
Okay.
Walters. Billy Walters. I took his action, and I follow him to this day through
Mhm.
people that are still in the game. So I'm going to bring that to the table also. So he is building a state of the art website for me where it's going to link to YouTube, Twitter, or X, whatever it is. I'm not really sure. Facebook. I'll probably tie it in with my book and my story. There's a possibility that I'll be doing a podcast now, but it'll be basically sports.
Okay.
But again, but it's going to undoubtedly it's going to always angle towards some parts of my life. People are going to be interested, and
Of
that's okay.
course.
That's
Yeah.
okay. But it's really based on sports. And what happened last year, usually I stopped handicapping around November because I started balancing out. I said, okay, I'm 50-50. I'm not going to win with that. But what I did was I redid my numbers,
Mhm.
factoring in injuries, factoring in surprises, like a young quarterback that gets thrust into action, and next thing you know, he's a great quarterback. He
Right.
was just playing behind the senior, and nobody knew. So I adjusted all of that, and I finished unbelievably well, unbelievably well. Right into the bowl games. So he says we're doing it next year. So the commercial was pretty much what I just said, where
Mhm.
I'm Larry Mazza. I've been part of the gambling industry for nearly 50 years. And I explain all the things I just said. Bottom line is the name of it is Inside Straight.
Mhm.
And when I say that at the end, I tell them, join Inside Straight today. Let me make you a winner.
Right. Right.
So you'll see the commercial. It's going to be, again, it'll be on YouTube, Twitter, all those places, social media. And we're also going to have, what do you call it, interaction, like where the member, we don't have any prices yet or anything like that, but I
Mhm.
guarantee you we'll come in under some of these swindlers and frauds that are out there doing it. I see it.
Right.
$500, I guarantee you a winner. And then when it loses, what do you do? You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is give them a plate load of information, zero in on what's important, tell them whether I think it's 1, 2, or 3 stars based on your own units. I mean, if you're $1,000 better, God bless you. If you're 500, you bet $25 a game. You know, it's a unit. 3-star play or 4-star play is probably going to be the best. Or one of them, when I found one of the kosher boys, or Billy Walters, it could be his game. It could be the robot games. They have these robots that are betting games now. It's just amazing. But what happens is sometimes that game, like say Sunday, the 1 o'clock games, that game could come in at 12:47.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be able to hit a button on the computer. All the members will get that hot game and why it's hot late.
Really?
And I'll tell, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Well, the only thing is,
I might have to start gambling.
I'll let them know. I'll say, this bet came in hot at -7. Soon as this guy played it, it went up to 8. So you can buy points now. You can buy points and bring it back down to 7. You can play the money line. There's options, but the wise guys are still going to get the best number. And I'll get that because as soon as it comes in, I'm going to play it or whatever,
Right.
and I will stress that people should play legally. But honestly, to me, it's nobody's business how a person plays the game.
Right.
I don't want to be out there promoting illegal gambling activities.
Yeah, right.
That's not going to be right. But the truth of the matter is, it's, what is it, like something like, I don't know, 40 states are legalizing it now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
There's only a few that aren't, so you're probably going to be able to play legally. But offshore technically isn't illegal because it's housed in, say, Costa Rica. It's legal there. If Joe Blow is sitting in his living room betting 200 on a football game through Costa Rica, I mean, where's the crime? They're going to come into the house and arrest him? No. Now, what used to make it a crime for us was collecting. If a guy didn't pay and you had to hurt him, that became extortion.
Right.
Or extortionate extension of credit. I allow a guy to lose $20,000 when I know he's a truck driver. I didn't do that. I mean, idiots would do that.
Right.
The guy's a truck driver.
Yeah.
Really, and there's nothing wrong with that. He probably makes $1,500 a week. He can't lose $20,000.
Right.
Now if he's the vice president of Allstate,
that's a different story.
Exactly. And I used to have my guys bring that, like say some. I knew this. I'll use this guy that had a Weiss potato chip route. He would lose literally, but I just said like 20,000. I said the guy's making $1,000 a week. So when they would bring him in to see me, I would say, how much do you think you could pay weekly on this?
Right.
And the guy will always start high. He'll say, I could 2,000. I says, you're a potato chip truck driver. You can't pay 2,000 a week. This is your chance. Let's set this up. Could you pay? Then he'll say, well, how about 800? I say, okay, 500. Bring 500 a week, knock this figure down, do it right, and go. I said, but please don't force us to come and get you. Just live up to that now.
Right.
And he's so happy. I gave him a chance. And then my guys would say, Lau, why'd you do that? He owes us 20,000. I said, because you're an idiot for letting the guy lose. I said, you want me now to threaten him? You want me to beat him up and cause legal problems for everybody? You allowed that to happen. Take it as a lesson learned. Plus, it's not good business because that guy will lose. If you give him $1,000 a week limit, he'll lose $1,000 a week for every week.
Right.
Now he's going to go somewhere else to bet. You're going to get your 500. He's going to bet. So you lost a player. You opened the door to a legal problem by hurting a guy that you caused it. So I was very businesslike. I didn't like, I wasn't greedy. I wasn't looking to hurt people. I always waited for money if the guys came the right way. Now there's times where they beat me for big numbers 2-3 weeks in a row. No. And then the fourth week, let's just say they won, 25,000 over 3 weeks. Now we let them lose a little bit more than maybe their 5,000 limit. Let them go to 10. They got all our money, which isn't that smart either. I should make them pay at the limit. Now they come in, they don't have a penny of the 10,000.
Okay.
Now it's a beat. You're trying to rob me.
Right.
You're not an honorable guy. You're not a
Right.
you know, what's the word? You're trying to take my steal from me.
Yeah.
And
He's not a
no
gentleman.
intentions been. One came in, and I'll never forget this one. He beat us good. The day he lost, he comes in and he says, I don't have the money, but I went to see John, meaning John Gotti.
Oh God.
We gave him a beating for not, first of all, for not paying us. Second, for bringing up a name that has nothing to do with me.
Right. Right. Right.
I wasn't impressed. And that's
Right.
what you did. You mentioned his name. Now you got a double beat.
Right.
It wasn't right.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was a slouch or I was an easy mark, but I was very, very reasonable with people. I still am in everything I do. You
Good.
know, anyway. So that's where that's what I'm doing. Terry Winter is writing for the Tulsa King now, so put me on hold. It's not a disrespectful hold. I understand. The guy
Listen,
got called
yeah.
back. He's probably guaranteed big money per episode.
Of
What
course.
is he going to do? And I still love the guy. I think he's working it hard. Joe Paletto
Right.
has some big people. I'll say this: some big people at Google that are very, very interested in my story too. So we're still, it's
It's building. It's building. It's getting there.
yeah, it's eventually I'm going to get a surprise phone call and
Yeah.
you'll know, so we can get it out there. Yeah.
All right. Very cool. Very cool. So the reason why, just changing topics, the reason why I wanted to have you back on, right?
Yeah.
About, I don't know what it was about last month. I called you and told you I wasn't honest with you at the beginning. So
You weren't dishonest either.
I just
It's
didn't.
not that I asked you if you had relatives around you.
Yeah.
You just never brought it up.
Right.
I wouldn't go that far, but go ahead. You
Okay.
could explain.
So I've been thinking about letting it out. I went on Andrew Giovino's channel and I spoke a little bit about it. Didn't get much exposure, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have Larry on. So what happens is when you start a podcast and you have somebody on that you're going to interview, you don't think you're going to become friends with the guy or the girl, right? You think, oh, I'm going to interview him, be a one-time deal. Maybe you'll come back another time and that's it. But you and I have a friendship now. Like we have a bond. You've been on, I don't know, a half a dozen times or whatever. We talk, we text.
Maybe more.
Yeah, I know. So I called you and I told you that your boss, when you were in the streets in the 80s, Scappy, was my father's partner, which was true. And I thought that just to get it out there and air it out and let it out and to tell you, just how close they were.
Right.
Plus, I thought about it for a while, right? For a long time. I mean, we're talking, when did I start? 4 years ago. So I thought about it for a while. I'm like, and for a long time, I didn't want to say anything, but I'm like thinking to myself, all the people that my father were involved in were dead, with the exception of either very old or dead, right? If there's last names, I don't have to reveal it. So I was like, there's no reason, not to talk about it.
Right.
So what had happened was my father was an electrician. He got his electrical contractor's license, and I don't have to tell you that my father grew up in Red Hook, Brooklyn. They call it Carroll Gardens now.
Yeah.
And it would have been 19.
Scappy's area. That was his area.
Yeah. And guys like Joe Gallo, Crazy Joe Gallo was from that area. There was another guy named Frankie Branca. Everybody called him Frankie Martin. He was from that area.
Frankie Martin, yeah. I remember.
I'm pretty sure Albert Anesthesia was from that area. I know he was
all tight with Scappy. Yes, all those names.
Yeah. So what happened was my father had a partner. It was his cousin. It was actually my mother's cousin, and they started a contracting business. And it was on Hickson President. The shop was on Hickson President. And I don't know how they met. I even called my brothers to kind of put some, because you got to remember I was in grade school when all this was going on, right? So he meets this guy named Vito, and Vito's, a Shylock, loan shark, so on and so forth. And Vito's brother, Tonio, they call him Tonio Bots. And he was he grew up with Scappy. So Vito was able to be, from what I understand, independent. He was able to push money on the street without paying a vig to Scappy because his brother and him was so tight. So my father somehow meets Vito. I don't remember how. I don't know how. And they get pretty friendly and they talk about him coming in as a partner because he had money, right? and my father was an electrical contractor, and they were kind of, you know, struggling a little bit. So my father goes to his cousin, and his cousin doesn't want to do it. He wants no part of it. So my father breaks away from his cousin, and he becomes partners with this guy Vito. So through Vito, he meets Scappy, right? Scappy really took a liking to my father for some reason. I don't know why. I think probably because my father just had balls. Like and when I tell you some of the stories, like he was a guy who was not afraid to take any chances, right? So he probably just really likes Scappy. And he started disliking Vito a little bit, right? And here's a funny story. I don't know if you know the guy Vito, his last name was, but he used to carry cash on him all the time, like 20 or $30,000 full of cash. And anytime Scappy would see him, he would grab his pockets full of cash and go, "Oh, Vito, give me some of that money," or whatever, right? So my father and him, this guy Vito, they started like on the outs. They didn't really uh, get along so well after so much time. And then Vito was murdered. Now I don't know the details of Vito's murder. All I know is that my father and Scappy become very close after Vito's murder, and Scappy takes over Vito's books, and my father actually starts collecting for Vito. For Scappy from Vito's books, and then he becomes his like silent partner in the contracting business, right? And for that point, for maybe 4 or 5 years, we're talking the early '80s. I mean, my father was making a shit ton of money, and he was spending a shit ton of money, right? But anytime he had a problem, you know, Scappy would handle it. Like so, he had a problem with another contracting company. It was called Amcon Contracting, and they got into a beef. The guy didn't want to pay my father. They owed my father like 120 or 110 or $120,000. And they got into an argument. And the guy says, "Well, you're gonna have to deal with some friends of mine." And my father goes, "Well, you're gonna have to deal with some friends of mine." And they go sit down. And turns out this guy who owned Amcon, his friend was Tough Tony Salerno. And they have had a sit down. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is a long. My father's been dead for 20 years, but from what I understand, Scappy couldn't sit with Tough Tony. He had to either bring Carmine to open or his son, if that makes sense, right? Because Scappy wasn't the boss of the family.
No, I'm sure he was a skipper at the time, but he
Yeah,
couldn't
he
sit.
was.
I don't know. That's a little before me to really. But yeah, he would have had to bring somebody. That's protocol. You
Okay,
know.
so I'm pretty sure that Scappy was definitely a skipper at the time, and uh, I'm pretty sure they had a. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure uh, Carmine's son opened for them, and then they left. Carmine's son was
Alley boy.
Alley Boy, right?
Yeah,
Sorry,
that makes sense. Yeah.
right, Alley Boy, and
Mhm.
then they got together and they sat there, right? And Tony had a really bad reputation, so they sit down, and as soon as they start, Tony looks at my father and goes, "Why don't you do the fucking job right?" Right. So Scappy said to my father, "When you talk to Tony, call him Mr. Tony." Right. And he said, "Mr. Tony, I am doing the job right." And they're kind of going on. They had to have a sit down for like 2 or 3 times. And then finally, I think Tony and Amcon brought in their own electrician to like see what if my father was really doing the job right. So after some time, the guy says, "John is doing the job right." So Scappy calls my father the next day and says, "Is a check for 90,000 good?" Because he owed him 110 or 120. So my father says, "Yeah." And the next day he had a check for $90,000. So that was like, some of the things that had happened. There were other funny stories during this time where my father would have to go to Scappy's house, and he would have he had I think he lived in Bensonhurst at the time. I think, am I right?
I think in the Bath Avenue area. Bath
Yeah.
Avenue.
So
Propsy.
he would leave the door open, and he'd be counting money, and he had this money all over the table. And my father would say, "Scappy, you want me to shut the door?" He goes, "No, there's all nice people around here." And then he would say, "Besides, Bruno is in the back room." And he had a machine gun or an Uzi that he called Bruno. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No.
No, really. So he said, "Yeah, besides Bruno's." And there was a couple of times my father sent my brother, and he would same thing. He had the door open, and there'd be like porn playing, and then he would, whatever, had money on the table, whatever he would have to talk about with.
I got a funny story for you.
Go ahead, go in.
You
Go
want
ahead.
no? You want to finish that first? Finish your thought.
No, that's it. Go ahead. We'll go
Because
more
you
into it.
said porn, right? You said
Yeah.
porn.
Mhm.
He was the king of that.
Really?
We go to his club on Carroll Street, the president down there, and it would always be on the TVs.
Really?
But the funny story was, and I wasn't there, but a friend of mine, Ronaldo, told me just recently that him and Alley Boy had to go see Scappy. So they get to the house and they get to the door and they can hear all these loud moans and groans. Yeah. So finally he says, "Come on in." They walk in and he's sitting there and he sits crossing his legs like Al Pacino used to sit.
I know what you mean. Okay,
Yeah, you know. Uh, and well, The Godfather, Al Pacino, the way he sat in that
yeah,
movie.
yeah,
And he says it's I mean a vicious porn. I mean it's triple X you can get. So I'm not going to get into detail. Picture what I'm
right,
talking.
right.
And they're sitting there. They both feel uneasy, Alley Boy and Ren. And finally, they said to him, "He says, well, you got it so loud, how people can hear." He says, "Why watch this stuff?" Whatever they said to him, and he says to them, he says, "What am I supposed to watch? Love Story." So he liked to watch that stuff. It's
That's
funny you
it.
said that because
Yeah,
I knew it from the club, and then my friend Ren told me that story. It was hysterical.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
So then him and my father became very close. And there were times where he would go pick up money that was in Vito's book, but now it's Scappy's. And it would be, I remember there was Nino's restaurant downtown Brooklyn. I don't know if you remember that
Mm-hmm.
restaurant.
I do.
That
Yes.
then there was a fruit vendor. I don't remember was the other guys, whatever. But one time he went to go pick up money. I want to say it was from Nino's restaurant. I don't know if it was 10 or 15,000, whatever. And my father never gave it to Scappy. So like a week later, Scappy says to him, what happened to the money from Nino, let's say, whatever. And my father goes, I needed some money. And Scappy like, all right, don't worry about it.
Mm.
Yeah,
He
it
must have
was,
like.
yeah. Then there was a time where he he borrowed about 40,000 from Scappy. And this starts the down point. He borrowed about 40,000 from Scappy, and Scappy never bothered him for it because they really liked each other very much, and they were making money. They were making money in contracting. Scappy was making money, so on and so forth. And um, there was actually let me back up a little bit. I had godparents that lived on my block, right? And his name was Lenny. Lenny Rapasauti, and he owed I believe it was Greg a lot of money because he was a degenerate gambler. Later on, like in the 90s, he became like his own kind of bookie and loan shark himself. But during this time, he was a young kid. He was probably your age at the time, and they really gave him a beating bad. I think they broke his leg. They might have broke both his legs, and so then my godfather goes to my father and says, can you talk to Scappy? Now my father doesn't know who he's involved with, right? Doesn't know. So my father goes to Scappy and he tells him the whole story. And Scappy goes, "Mind your fucking business." And that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then it
Yeah.
turned out that Tony, his father had to pay him. His father paid him off or whatever. I mean, there were like stupid things. There was another time where there was a Jewish kid that my father had working for him, and he got into some trouble, and he went to Scappy for help. Actually, he went to my father to ask Scappy for help, and my father goes to Scappy, and Scappy goes, "I don't help Jews." Right. So it was like my father knew the limit. Like once Scappy
Yeah.
said no to something, that was it. And then there was another time when my father wanted to start selling coke, and Scappy shot it down. He said, "No way,
Yeah.
doing that." I don't know if it was just morally or if it's just we're getting away. I don't know the story, but
Well, it was again, it was supposed to be taboo. There was
yeah,
a rule against it. But guys, you don't need me to tell you, got the temptation and they did it. And
yeah,
some
right,
got away with it. Some of the higher ups accepted envelopes, and it sort of, it was an unwritten rule really towards the
right,
end. So many
right,
guys were doing it.
right.
But yeah.
So then, for a few years, things were going great, and there's a lot of other funny stories like that. And my father never had a problem because Scappy was always there, and
Mhm.
my father was making a ton of money. I remember he had a 1985 Eldorado. He gave it to my oldest brother because the same year he bought a 1985 Mercedes Benz. So they were making a lot of
Yeah.
money,
Wow.
and so then Scappy goes to prison. I think what was it, 85 or 87? I don't remember what year.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. A little before
So
80.
So of course, Scappy's book becomes now Greg's book, and he notices that that 40,000 is missing, and Greg wasn't, like Scappy, so he can't. I remember they were breaking my father's chops for the money. They came to the house in Brooklyn. They came to the
Wow.
shop. Yeah,
Hmm.
they came to the shop, and this is the downtime. See, a lot of people think that all this stuff is glitz and glamour. It's a glitz and glamour for a short period of time, right? And then it's just a
Hmm.
disaster. So I mean, they busted up the shop, and my middle they were wiring romantic limousines,
Hmm.
right? And my middle brother takes it upon himself to go talk to Carmine Jr.'s brother. I think it's Teddy, right? Who was
Hmm.
running Romantique, and my brother couldn't have been. My brother's 11 years older than me, so he had to be 20 maybe, and he took it upon himself to talk to Teddy, and he goes into the office and he says, "Hey, Teddy, can I talk to you?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, Dominic. Yeah, what's up?" And he goes, "My father owes some money," and he goes, "Let's go outside. Let's go outside." Right? So they go outside, and then I think that money became Teddy's. I think he was able to hash it out where that money he owed it to Teddy. But after that, when um when Scappy went to prison, my father would spend like there was no tomorrow. He would get a requisition. He would buy a piece of property. He would go gambling. He would buy all these incredible, cars and clothes. And my mother had mink coats, and so he was not much of a saver. So he really went broke. And he tried opening an electrical supply house that went bankrupt, and he went back to contracting. So later on, now I'm more like in high school, right? So this is I could remember thoroughly. The guy he used to go to for help, I remember he had a beef with somebody from the past over a piece of real estate or something. I don't know all the details. And he didn't know who to go to because he didn't have anybody, Scapper was in prison. He didn't have any contacts. And he knew this guy, Jackie. And for the life of me, I can't remember Jackie's last name.
The Ross,
And
maybe.
I don't know. He's from Staten Island because we
Mhm.
were living in Staten Island by this point.
I don't think he was from there, the Ross.
Yeah. So,
But I know he was first coach, Jackie DeRoss.
oh no. No, no, no. This is going to be completely different. And then so Jackie says to my father, "Don't worry, my uncle will take care of it." And his uncle was TG, Tony Graziano.
Hmm.
And so then from there on, he would go to Tony Graziano if he had any problems with contracting people, so on and so forth. And I remember that, he wasn't very super friendly with TG, but he was friendly with this guy, Jackie. Um, and we would have to go, me and my brothers would have to go to TG's birthday parties, which were in a strip club called Hips on Staten Island. I don't know if you remember that
Hmm.
place. He had a
Not
play.
really.
He had a birthday. He had a Christmas party at MJ's, which was a restaurant, and we all three of us would have to go, and my father would have to give him an envelope, like to show,
I remember
respect.
MJ. That was way out in Stanton.
Yeah, yeah, it was in the boondocks. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's all built up now,
yeah.
but
Greg
yeah,
June used to hang out there a lot
yeah,
because
yeah,
he
yeah,
lived way out there in Wolf's Pond.
yeah. And then that's basically, and then like there were people that really liked my father, like Scappy.
Hmm.
And then there were people that disliked my father greatly. And I think it was probably for the same reason. Probably because my father just had balls.
Listen,
So,
it's most of us have that. I
yeah.
my 99 people like me, respect me, whatever, and then you'll get one that just has
Yeah.
to talk bad or not like me, and that's
But,
the nature of the beast.
so here's what I mean by my father had balls, right? He gets a contract with Frankie Martin's son, had a general contracting business. So they gave my father the electrical contracting. And he had to get workers' comp. And my father falsified workers' comp papers and told him, "Yeah, I got it." And then they audit Frankie Martin's son and they tell him, he doesn't have workers' comp, and now you're in you owe 30,000 or 40,000. So then Frankie Martin never liked my father for some reason. I don't know why. And he comes to the house in Staten Island, so it's like the same thing all over again.
Yeah,
Anytime, and then and of course my father had to come up with the money. I think I might be wrong. I think he took a second mortgage out on the house. I don't know
yeah.
the whole story, but it's like, as a kid watching this, it's
Yeah. Well,
it's traumatic.
sometimes a guy like Frankie Martin, he's a serious guy. He's
Yeah.
no joke. He's been around. I mean, a top guy from way back. I mean, uh, And he might have had a little jealousy seeing how your father was real tight with Scappy. You
Could
know,
be.
there's a lot of that too. I
Yeah.
remember people used to uh, make comments because of how close I was to Greg. You
Yeah.
know, unnecessary comments. I became my own man. It wasn't like, you know, I was pulling his coattail forever. You
Yeah.
know, when I started out, I had to learn. He taught me, and that was it. You know?
Everybody starts out like that in that
Plus,
life,
somebody,
you
yeah,
know?
somebody's got to see something in you and bring you close, and then you learn.
Yeah.
They do.
Remember the
So,
story you told me about the diner and the owner of the diner was selling drugs out of the diner?
yeah.
My
Mhm.
father used to meet Scappy for breakfast at that diner all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. I bet that's where, yes.
So
Yeah.
it was just fun. And he just had, my father just had like, he just had balls, man. I wish I had
Yeah.
half the balls he had. But at the same time, the guts that he had, got him into a lot of trouble. Like he spent
Yeah.
so much money and, went bankrupt and we'd be
You
behind the
know,
whole.
and the other thing I say a lot of it's timing. Okay. There was a time and place to have balls. Uh, and it's really not today anymore
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
you know, with the laws the way they are, number one, uh, cameras everywhere. You know, like we would walk into a place and do some damage, like we had badges back in the day. You
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
you can't do that anymore.
Right.
You know, the only time, it would have been a good time for vendettas is when the pandemic hit. You could go anywhere with a mask, and nobody. I said it, and nobody look at you twice.
Yeah, that's right.
You
You're
know,
right about that. Yeah.
you
Yeah. I
know,
didn't even think of that. Yeah.
I would go into my bank. They tell me take off my sunglasses, or because it's like a disguise. I said they're
Right.
prescriptions. I said I'll take them off. They're prescriptions.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
and the next year with the pandemic, I couldn't walk in without a mask.
Right.
You're not afraid anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny. It's a lot of things are just timing. You know, in the 60s and 70s, when there wasn't racketeering and everybody minded their business and the mob was somewhat accepted, you know what I mean? Uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, the balls got you further.
Right. Right. Right.
But as soon as, Giuliani came around and
Yeah.
started changing the laws, and not only him, other, other prosecutors out of the government, and they just took away our balls, really. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
most guys don't want to get caught killing somebody,
Yeah.
do life or whatever. It's only normal,
Yeah.
But back then, even in the early 80s, I mean, I did some brazen things with him, with Greg,
Sure.
really. And during the war, I mean,
Yeah. I can only imagine.
so,
Yeah.
but,
Now,
you know,
being in construction in the 70s and 80s, so wasn't it almost like necessary to have
there was
somebody?
no way you were getting a big job without being connected to somebody.
Right. Right. Right.
They built the court building on across the street from MCC in Manhattan. That's
Okay.
the court building now.
Right.
They were building it while I was in there, and we knew the concrete company that was pouring the cement to build that court building was owned by Junior Persico and Sammy the Bull.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And we're like, they're building this court building. They talk about like Trump, that he's a big builder, a big developer in New York and New Jersey. You better believe he had to
Right.
have, and it was before he was as influential as he is, become president, whatever. He had no choice.
Right.
That's the way it was. Now things again, even that's changed.
Now let's say that, like, for example, that sit down that they had with Tony Solano and the guy was trying to beat my father out of money. If my father didn't have friends,
He would have been beat.
That's it. Yeah.
He would have been beat. He would have never got his money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, would he have to continue with the job, or you know what I mean? How would it work?
I don't know all the details, but I don't think he could not finish the job with a guy Tough Tony involved.
Right.
But well, and I'm going to say this: situations like that. I'm not saying your father would have ever done it.
Right.
You're forcing a guy to do something he might not want to do. What is his alternative? You're robbing him. You're forcing him to do work. He can't feed his family. You know what I'm saying. You're forcing him to go for help.
Right. 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 Right.
And if you can't get help with your own friends and your circles, you got to, you're forcing it.
Right.
And I've seen that over the years too in our life, where you really begged this guy to go bad. You begged him.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
so that's a hairy situation right there. Your father was in a very bad spot.
Yeah, and what's funny is that, he was very old school. Like my father never showed emotion. He's
Right.
very, very hard guy. I mean, he would smile and laugh and so on and so forth, but the stress that he would put himself in, or the stress that he would go under, I mean, it would he just handled it. He would just handle it. It wouldn't be, it wouldn't, the last thing he would want is my mother to find out. So we would tell my brothers, don't tell your mother or anything like that.
Right.
Because, right.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that's true.
I would go home as a kid and, never think anything, there was a problem, because he just, I don't know how he did. I think the men back then were just different, but he just let
Yeah.
it roll off his shoulder.
Yeah.
Knowing he owed money, or knowing he did this, or knowing he did that, or whatever, he just, that was it, and he never saved for tomorrow. Like that wasn't.
That was a problem with a lot of guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I was probably guilty of that.
Yeah.
You know, because you think it never ends. Even like with the sports business, when I was young, and you had a week where, we made 30,000 at 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Building the business, the numbers got even bigger as time went on. But I'm just saying, and whoever's around me, I'm paying them very well, which
Right.
most guys didn't do. So at the end of the day, the 30, by the time I gave Greg Jr. a piece, and they were good with me. They didn't demand, whatever I gave them, they said, wow, great, good week,
Yeah.
And I learned as time went on to give less and less, because when we lost, I didn't get any help. So when we won, instead of giving him maybe 5 or 8,000, I give him 2 and say, we scraped through the week,
Right.
and I didn't feel guilty, because, like I said, when we lose, nobody chipped in. I had to pay everything.
Right.
So you learn like that. But I didn't really save enough. Later on in life, I learned, even then, as I started getting more and more, a little older, and before the trouble started, I was learning to say, if, I was making 7,000 a week, Shylock, and me and my partner, Jimmy. So we didn't live with like the whole thing. 5 of it would go in an envelope.
Right.
We take, again, this is back in
Yeah.
the early 80s. We take
Yeah.
1,000 cash each
Right.
every week, But also we might have had hit sports, like I use the same number, 30,000. 15 of it went right into the bankroll. The other 15, 3 for him, 3 for me, 3 for the 2 Gregs, 1,500 each.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
But we always did what we felt was, right. The number business, I became partners with Greg, 2 Gregs on, and at one time it was doing 300,000 a week.
Wow.
But you make 10 to 15%. So
Right.
it's still a nice little, it's another
Of course.
clean income. So I was now partners with the 2 Gregs. So 15 was there. I would get 5. I always took care of Jimmy with that too, my partner. But we put money. I still do that. If my gym, I'll just throw another. My gym makes, 2,500 this week. I may put 15 of it away. Just forget it. And I've learned, and it's it's a wise thing to do.
Yeah.
Because nothing lasts forever.
Absolutely. And what's funny is, even out of all the things my father went through, he never, he always kept the same company. Like all the guys that he would play cards, they were all street guys like him. There might have not been guys like Scappy or like yourself, but they were all guys that were looking to pull a scam and shysters and so on and so forth. Like he had a good friend, one of his best friends growing up. His name was Louis, and my father had this building, I think on Fifth Avenue in Prospect Park, something like yeah. And he owned the building, and of course the building was foreclosed. But back then, there was no, the tenants didn't know, right? They didn't know that there was no internet or anything like that where they could find out. So when they foreclosed on the building and the tenant finally did find out, my father's friend Louis went in there like 2 weeks later and said, "Yeah, I'm the new owner of the building. You got to pay me."
Wow, that's funny.
It's
Hey,
like old shit
yeah,
like that constantly.
yeah. Never listen. It's you could write a comedy of this
Yeah.
half the stuff too. But do you remember a guy named Mysterious Jim?
No, not at all. No,
He was
no.
tied with Scappy too. I want to say he ran the slot machine business and all of that stuff, and Joker Pokers and arcade games. But don't hold me to that. But I remember he used to come around with keys a lot and things like that. But he was a funny guy. He's a
Okay.
funny guy. He was tight with Scappy, and he would come to the club almost every day just to say hello.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I thought because he was real tight with him, I thought maybe
If my father was alive, he probably would
he
know
probably
a lot
I'm
more.
sure yep.
And it's just like, you think back, right? And you think back and as crazy as they were, they taught you kind of how to they taught you how to be a man just by well, and you're like just your mannerisms and what you should do and what you should not do
Mhm.
and so on
Yeah,
and so forth. Like I just stupid things. Like my mother never looked at the check, right? My father would always pay, would never look at the check. And then there would be times where I got older and I would go out to eat with like couples, and then like a friend's girlfriend would be looking at the check and it would just blow me away. And I'm like, why
yeah.
are you looking
It's different. It's different, and it's funny. It's what the kids are being taught now too. Like a man shouldn't be a man. A
Oh,
man should be more, what. But
little
there's,
stupid things like
yeah, it's just I don't know.
keeping your money in your wallet kills me.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
kill. Because nobody I knew, even till this day, keeps their money
Listen,
in their wallet. And then when I see somebody take out their wallet and take out money, I'm like girls do that. Like,
no, you gotta listen. You gotta have the broccoli rubber band.
yeah, yeah, right,
Ain't
right.
that a rubber band? Yeah,
My father had a gold a money clip.
your money clips are good. This
And
is the
money,
new thing. This is the closest thing I have to a wallet.
yeah,
It holds
right,
it holds
right.
the cash in here,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
it holds the credit cards
yeah,
in there. See,
yeah,
now
exactly.
it's just for the so if the government's looking, they're all singles.
Like, yeah, man, it was just little things like that,
Yeah,
like and just a way to carry that, like the idea of just dealing with stress. Like nobody cried, nobody talked about their problems. Nobody,
yeah.
he might converse with like my brothers about the problems they had at work,
Mhm.
but nobody went to a fucking therapist.
No, hey, no, I agree, and it's even like my own family. I got a brother and a sister, and I remember my mom mentioning that to me, saying that they'll come to your sister and brother always come and talk to me. You never do, but don't forget, at 17, I was with Greg, or
Yeah,
18.
right, right, right,
I was
right,
17, I was with Linda. 18, I was with him. And I'm learning differently, like you just said.
right.
I'm not on home and tell my mommy I had a, you know what I mean? It just
It's
don't
just you
do it.
didn't do that. Yeah.
Right. So I became very independent at a young age, and
Yeah, no, and then there were like things like, you know, my father had a problem with the guy that lived next door for years, and then one day he just beat the shit out of him.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I,
yeah. The guy
yeah,
was really weird, and he was taking pictures of us as kids. And my father's sister was outside, so
yeah,
my aunt Josie ran inside to tell. So they called him Johnny. He said, Johnny, I forgot the guy's name. The guy next door saying, so my father says, "You taking pictures of my kids?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he snapped a picture of my father. So my father jumped over the fence and just beat the shit out of him. And
yeah.
then the guy actually took him to court. But this is back when that was accepted. So when they when they found out everything, and the guy brought the pictures of my family to court to like, right, the judge, I guess, my father won or whatever, and the guy says, Your Honor, he almost killed me, and the judge goes, I would have killed you, but today my father would have been in prison if that was the case.
Yeah,
You know
true.
what I mean? And it's just
Yeah.
like little things like that. Like, and you don't even realize that you learn it, right? Like last week there was an argument, and it was the middle of the night, and it was an argument outside. There was these kids fighting in the street. So I put my shoes on and I put my shorts on. And I went outside, right? And it turned out to be just high school kids, but I was the only asshole on the block that went outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
But
It's just everybody closed their doors and
yeah.
hopefully nothing will happen. And it's like, I just don't, it's just completely different now. It's totally different. And those ways that
Yeah.
were taught, it's almost gone,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Listen, a lot of it isn't good. A lot of it, I wish would come back.
Yeah, me too. But
A lot
I
of
don't,
that, but yeah.
I mean, it's just unfortunate, but I mean, so basically, the whole sum of today's podcast was me confessing this to you because I called you and apologized to you,
Yeah.
right? And I just wanted to let you know. And also, I the last straw that made me decide to talk about it was I knew that it would add validity to my channel because I'm not coming
Right.
from a spot where I don't know about this stuff, right?
Right.
I'm coming from a spot where I saw it, within my
Yeah.
own family and
Yeah.
whatnot.
You're not a groupie, or I'll say
Right.
that. I don't mean this to or a wannabe journalist.
Yeah,
You
there's a lot of
Yeah. Yeah.
podcasters that do, but they're not from New York or they're from the
Mhm.
UK or they're from, like the biggest, and I like the guy, Jeff Nadeau. I mean, he does a great job, but the biggest knock on him is you're from Pennsylvania, you don't know, you're Albanian, that's his biggest knock on him. Even though he does
Yeah.
a fabulous job doing researching and so on and so
Mhm.
forth, that's his biggest knock, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the list. I'm like, everybody's dead. What am I worried about? And I'm like, Greg Scarpa Jr. is in Florida. He can't leave the
Mhm.
state. He's just got out. He's an old man. And I'm like, there's nothing, I need to worry about anymore, you know?
No.
And and then
I
and then and that's really it. That's the whole story.
Yeah. I'm in touch with Greg Jr.
Yeah, how's he doing?
Yeah, he's doing good. He's doing good.
It,
He's got a really a good job now. I
really?
say that because when he first, we struck a guy gets out of prison at 70 after being in for 35 years.
Oh,
Who's going to hire you? So he had a bunch of little nonsense, but now he's got something. He's working with the city.
good.
Uh, yeah, and he's got his own place to live now. So,
Does he have cancer or no?
he's got a clean bill of health now. I mean,
Oh, good. Good for
he
him. Okay.
went through hell. He went through hell. They had to perform uh, a groundbreaking surgery on him because the cancer was so in his throat they couldn't cut it away. It would have ripped his aorta.
Wow, really?
So they had to build a canal to take the blood that was going to go through that aorta, bring it to the other side of the neck, and go up here.
Jesus.
So they were able to clean the cancer out.
Wow. The things that they
So
can do today, it's
it's
unbelievable.
amazing. And he was
Yeah.
lucky. He was lucky. He was lucky because the hospital in the state he was in of Iowa is the number one hospital for that specific throat cancer thing in the
Right.
world.
Wow. Okay. All right.
So
Good.
they had this brilliant mind figured a way to keep the blood flow and get the kid. And 5 years came and went. And, so he's in good shape. He keeps himself lean. I think he does a lot of walking and working out still.
Good. Good. Good.
He's got a nice girl in his life now. So yeah, no, it's good. I'm glad for him.
Good. Good. So, what's the name of this website, the gambling website
It's
that you're
going to
going to
be
be
called. It's called Inside Straight.
Inside Straight? And when do you think it's going to be up and running?
The last I heard, we'll be up and running the beginning of July, which will give us a month to promote. We'll do some baseball. We'll do some because that's really all that's going to be left is baseball to get the kinks out. But for college football and NFL, we're going to be in full blast. But we're also doing horses. I have
Really?
a bunch of connections with flats and trotters. I happen to be very good with the Meadowlands on weekends, like Friday and Saturday when the best horses are running and you get a true read. I remember being in the game with one of Greg's son, Buddy, years ago, and I learned a lot about the race,
Okay.
when and how and why some horses look good at one time and then the next week they don't look good. And not fixing races, but there's reasons.
Right.
A guy may not force his horse to really, really run real hard if he knows he's going against good horses and he's got post 8 all around the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll just let him. He'll use that as a training. He'll try to get a check. He'll try, but he just doesn't feel confident. The next week, that same horse is against a little bit weaker from post position 1.
Right.
So I know that that's a big difference. And now he's going to go with that horse. He's going to push him a little harder. And there's certain drivers and trainers and jockeys that become friendly. Again, I'm not saying they're fixing a race, but they talk.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
And, when I was in it, I would hear from another trainer that his horse isn't feeling well.
Right.
And if he was honest with me, he was a friend and he's telling me the truth. All right, so I'm not going to put him in my exact.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
So that was only 7 horses I got to worry about. I feel mine's going to be first or second.
Right.
So now, things like that, and those connections are still there. And I got some pro handicappers all the way from Santa Anita to Saratoga that I've dealt with over the years. So it'll be like now. The Kentucky. Did you see the Belmont Stake? Did you watch it?
No, I'm not into horses too much, to be honest with you.
Well, I love the 9 and the 10. Love them, and I have reasons. In a nutshell, one ran a great race, came in second in the Kentucky Derby. Then he didn't run in the Preakness. I was wondering why, and I thought about it. I said he was prepping him for the longer race. He was a 9. He finished second again. The 10 was a horse called Mindframe. I said, where was he at all these big races? All of a sudden, he's in the Belmont Stakes, and it's a great trainer, Chad Brown. I said, that horse is going to be there. So I put the 9 and 10. I had to use the 1 who won the Preakness, and I had to use the 3 who won the Derby because you couldn't throw them out. They just looked like, but I said, somebody's going to step up here. It always happens. So I used that horse, Dornock.
Okay.
And I had the triple. It paid $950.
Nice.
For a $2 bet.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I might have to start playing the horses now.
The exact, well, you're going to see the show. The exact that paid $300, and I had that because I boxed them.
Okay.
I just So anyway, again, I'm going to lose 3 or 4 races to hit one. But if I hit one because I'm not a big favorite bettor, and the people I deal with, I don't want them to call me up and tell me, a ruffian's going to win or a secretariat's going to win. Gee, thanks.
Right.
I want something that value.
Right.
Same of course. Sports gambling. You don't want to. You want value.
Right.
If you're playing as a gambler, and it's very important. So you want a good number. You want a value. And even there, if you bet heavy favorites all the time, you're never going to make any money. That being said, don't bet against the Yankees. They're too friggin' good. They're so good. That lineup is scary. And
what's funny, Larry? I used to follow basketball. I used to follow baseball. I used to follow boxing. I don't follow shit anymore. Between working, doing the podcast, my house, the wife, everything, and my mother now, because my mother has dementia, so we have to go over and take care of her and everything. I don't follow anything anymore.
Yeah. Well, here's the problem for me with sports. I can't watch them like I used to. Too many rule changes. Like if you watch an NBA game, it's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's about they palm the ball, they carry the ball when they're dribbling. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to bounce.
Right.
You'll never see a pick and roll. You'll never see a give and go. It's very independent, one-on-one stuff. There's no strategy. They don't play defense. And the big play is a dunk from a 7-foot guy.
Right.
In dunk. If I was 7 feet, I could dunk. I mean, to me, it's just, it doesn't do it for me. There's no, I don't like it. College baskets, I'll still watch some games where maybe Duke, North Carolina, UCLA against, Connecticut against Syracuse, St. John's. Those rivalry type games are still good basketball to watch because the kids are still learning. They're playing ball the way it's supposed to be played.
Right.
Then you look at baseball. They pull in the fences. They tighten up the baseball to make these guys hit it further, so there's more offense. I love a 1-0 game.
Yeah. If you're a hardcore ball fan, baseball fan.
Right. Football is becoming a bit of a turnoff now because of they're overdoing it to protect quarterbacks. And I'm not saying you gotta be fair about that. But he's a football player on the field.
Right.
Look at Terry Bradshaw. He can't walk, but he don't like the game either.
Right. What do you think of What do you think of this new girl in WNBA? Everybody's talking about Caitlin Clark.
Well, she is bringing ratings. They
Yeah.
should love her. They should promote her. But because of, again, racial nonsense all the time in this
Yeah.
world, they're trying to hold her back. They're trying to hurt her on the court. You
Yeah.
know, that's the jealousy we were talking about before. They
Yeah.
should embrace her.
Yeah.
It's like,
Absolutely.
like Charles Barkley. He talks highly of Larry Bird to this day.
Right. Right. Right.
He made a comment. He says, God made him white to save us. Because if he could jump and run like us, we'd all be in trouble.
Yeah. Right. Right.
He's telling the truth, but it's different. I like the game back then with Magic Johnson, Mike Jordan,
Sure.
Larry Bird, those guys. That was, football, college football. Now we got to watch it because the players are being paid. You know that, right?
Okay. In college?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, one of them, I said, in the last couple of years, made $8 million in endorsements and stuff.
Jesus Christ.
He may not want to leave college, just stay there. So, but again, I won't fight that, or I won't say it's a bad thing, but it's going to change the game.
Of course.
Just like gambling did. Gambling becoming widespread now. It changed. There's guys that were just arrested in the NBA because there's bets called props. So let's just use a name we know from the past. Larry Bird.
Okay.
If his over-under for 3-pointers was, let's say, 3.5.
Okay.
So if you bet him, he's got to hit 4 3-pointers if you bet over. Okay? Don't matter how many attempts, he just has to hit 4 of them.
Right.
So he would bet under.
I see. Okay.
And he's just not going to take a lot of 3-pointers. He'll take 2 3-pointers. Or at the end of the game, if they're up by 20 and he's on 3, he's going to say, oh, I pulled my hamstring.
Right.
And they're doing it. They got caught doing it. There's this one player that had more action on him to be under. It's just what I said, under 1.5 3-pointers. There was like 12 million bet on it.
Jesus.
That's more than all the other props put together. So somebody saw that. So, what's going on? Guy got something in his eye. He sat out the first half. Came back in the second half. He hurt his hamstring. So he didn't play that much. And all his friends and himself, they cashed. But he got thrown out of the NBA indefinitely, forever.
Wow. That's unbelievable, man.
So it's greed. It's not.
It shouldn't shock me, but it always does.
Yeah, it does. So those things are changing sports. So it's hard. I understand. I don't really have any, very few favorite players anymore. Right. Like in the old days, you could say just certain guys you loved them. Willie Mays just passed away.
That's right.
He's a fantastic ball player, just incredible. All the way up to guys like Don Mattingly, George Brett. I used to love them, to watch them. Now, I mean, it got tarnished too with the drugs those years with Bonds and Sosa, who just getting bigger and bigger. Like you, I see your shoulders are getting a little too big. I'm
just hitting. Yeah, absolutely. And just hitting the gym. That's all. I do use testosterone replacement therapy. I'm not going to lie about that. I'm 48 years old, so it is what it is.
Oh, listen, I go to a doctor. We have our blood done twice a year. He's got me on stuff, but it's all the right amounts where I want to be.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the way they explained it, what is wrong with having growth hormone of a 45-year-old, so I could still run, I could still play ball, still recover.
Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, I do the same thing. I go to a doctor, get my blood work done. I get it. Absolutely.
And it's smart. It's a good move, So anyway, all
Larry,
right, I know we're about up. I guess I'll get down the road soon. Maybe I'll come on just when we're blasting off the Inside Straight.
Absolutely, Inside Straight. Keep your eyes open for it. You'll
be able to see it and learn a little bit about it, and then we'll do that. And like I said, I'll be back.
Yeah. All right, Larry. Much love, much respect. Always. Thank you for coming on again, sir. We'll talk soon.
You got it.